Testing for YouTube. Testing 1, 2, 3.
right, welcome everyone. We will call to order our regular meeting of council and start by acknowledging and recognizing that we work, live, and play in the city of Port Alberni, which is situated on the unceded territories of the Sishat and Hupachesit First Nations. Councillors, we do have an agenda in front of us. Are there any late items? Seeing none, any late items from our corporate officer?
No late items, Madam Mayor.
Great. Would somebody like to move approval of our agenda? Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Seeing no comments on the agenda, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And on to adoption of minutes. We have minutes from the special meeting and regular meeting of council held on February 9th, 2026 to be adopted. Moved to adopt by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any comments on the minutes? Seeing none, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And we have two delegations today. The first one is from our Chief Administrative Officer to introduce our new roles. Pass it to the back.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very pleased today to introduce two new project managers with the City of Port Alberni who are backfilling some positions that have recently been vacated. First, I'd like to introduce Adam Idris, who comes to us from the town of Comox. He previously has worked with School District 71 as well as with the Comox Valley Regional District. And Adam's primary focus in his new role will be to take over the master plan execution. I'd also like to introduce Brandon Donas, who comes to us from the village of Cumberland. Brandon's got 17 plus years managing projects with the City of Courtenay, National Defence Canada, as well as Associated Engineering. And Brandon's focus will be primarily on the capital project execution starting this year. So just wanted to introduce those two guys.
Thank you very much, and looking forward to having you both on and working on these very important projects. Welcome. Thank you. Great, thank you so much. And we will move on now to our second delegation, which is the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District.
Great, thank you very much. So we are here today to present for you the draft 2026 to 2030 financial plan. I am Terry Fong, the Chief Financial Officer for the ACRD, and with me I have CAO Daniel Celan. So we're going to share this slide deck and hopefully get you up to speed. And Sarah's going to be my Vanna. Okay, perfect. So our financial plan is loaded onto the website, and you guys do have a copy of these slides in your agenda package, so we won't go over them in detail, but it is for 5 years, just as the cities is, and each service for a regional district is budgeted independently. So our revenues, our expenditures, and our transfers to and from reserve, we're on a little bit of a tighter timeline than the municipalities in that we have to adopt by March 31st of each year. So we're in a full engagement phase right now. Next, please. In terms of services, a regional district has to keep our services independent, so they're all completely separate. We cannot transfer money from parks to airports or landfills to water systems, and each area is only charged for the services that they're provided. This allocation of expenditures does include the allocation of staff time and benefits, so we must focus on how we spend our time on these services. Next, please. To develop our financial plan, we do take our operations of our existing services. We also have a 2024 to 2027 strategic plan that we are continuing to try to implement. We have each year look at some proposed initiative cases, oftentimes to implement those items in the strategic plan. We have asset management plans for each of our services, and we are continuing to find ways to fund those infrastructure gaps, as we have many of them. And we want to adopt a plan that has an allocation of resources that can achieve the outcomes that are desired by the board, but we also need to remain a little bit responsive to changing social, environmental, and financial context. I'd say a great example of that was Mount Underwood Fire last year and the change of work plan that quickly happened. Next. So in terms of ways to engage, the information is on our website. We also have created a Let's Connect engagement hub this year, trying to get a little more engagement. We are on a roadshow to the different areas to present, to get some feedback from both councils and members of the public at large. So please feel free to email any questions to budget@acrd.bc.ca. Our strategic plan has 4 focused areas. We are in the last year of our plan, and our focus areas are planning for a resilient and livable region, managing our assets and infrastructure, partnerships and communications, and advocacy and service. And I would say this financial plan definitely has all the components of this plan in it. In terms of a summary, we're about just shy of $40 million. The tax requisition is about $13.6 million, including the hospital district requisition. We kind of talk about them as they're one entity because they are the same group of taxpayers and same group of elected officials, even though it's a separate legal entity. So our tax increase is 7.32% as an organization as a whole, but I do have a slide later in this deck about the City of Port Alberni's rate because it changes from area to area within the region. Large general government increase, and we'll have a slide later to talk about that, but there's a lot of advocacy work being done in that area, and we estimate about $18.3 million in grant funding this year. Because you guys have your slides, I am going to skip over a lot of this, but we are, in terms of focus areas for regional planning, agriculture continues to remain a focus area. In terms of climate adaptation, a little bit of a focus this year on the West Coast, as there's a partnership going on there with the Coastal Biosphere Trust, but continue to focus on that as well as have all of our subdivision referrals and ALC applications. Next, please. The airport, there is actually the tax is remaining level this year. We opted not to do a small reduction as we had originally planned. The airport is a large operation. It does take a lot of time to maintain and continue to look at ways of expanding. We are always looking for opportunities to develop more lease lots to try to move this requisition away from the taxpayers and to revenue generating options. So we're looking to do an expansion of the taxiway network to open up some future lease lots. So looking at the design phase of that this year. And next is the regional parks, which includes the Log Train Trail, or the portion of the Log Train Trail that's in the regional district. There is sections of the Log Train Trail in the city as well that we are not talking about, but there is a transition planned to move that to multimodal. It's become very challenging with our lease with the ministry, and we continue to work through those items with the ministry for that updated lease. And so we will be looking to continue that this year. In terms of Sprout Lake Marine Patrol, we've operated this service for a number of years through a grant that was mostly covered by Transport Canada. That grant is not in existence for 2026, so we are looking for other grant opportunities. And if we aren't able to secure one during the year, we will have to look for options moving forward, whether we want to reduce the level of the service or if we want to increase the level of taxation in 2027. The regional district also operates the landfill and our waste management services, although the city provides curbside within their boundaries, but always looking to increase education. And there are new landfill gas regulations that have just come out, so trying to figure out the impacts of that here this year and if there'll be financial impacts in terms of leachate collection systems. And particularly, we continue to work with Sashot on a landfill working group as we do not have permanent tenure of our landfill. We are in a 5-year temporary tenure. And so working with the Sashot Nation to look for a collaborative approach forward to present to the ministry, including potentially looking for citing additional landfill space. And Handy Dart has quite a tax requisition increase this year, as we did in our expansion a couple of years ago. We've also run out of all of the COVID stabilization funding that we received at the time from the province. And so this one is experiencing quite an increase. And we are also having to transition to new dispatch software by BC Transit. This is going to make the ridership, I believe, experience better and they'll be able to do more pickups, but it is coming at a cost. And now I'll pass it over to Danielle.
Emergency 911 services is provided through a corporation that the ACRD represents you on, with North Island 911. And the last few years, we've been working on implementation of Next Gen 911. We did a lot of GIS work over the last year, and we still have some funds remaining, so we're going to do some training and support. There is a small increase in this area, and the increase is really looking to bolster the reserves in different areas as we all see grants and various levels of support from higher levels of government dwindling away. Next slide, please. Emergency and disaster management, there's a partnership between the city and the ACRD, and so we provide that joint service. Our focus continues to be on building capacity, training, public education, and alignment and consultation, collaboration with First Nations communities. Next slide. 2025, we implemented 8 different grants, and I'm not going to go through each one because we don't have enough time, but I will flag that our collaboration over the years has really had us punching above our weight, so to speak, in terms of the volume of money that we've received through grants, and that is because we are collaborating and we are integrating our work together, and so it's just important to flag that. I think we were one of the last to receive the next round of Fire Smart grants, which is good for 2 years, just before they cut the program or cut the funding. So again, it's just really good to see our collaboration, and we see that benefit overall. Next slide. With the Emergency Operations Center, we had 5 activations last year, the largest of which is, of course, Mount Underwood wildfire. And on this one, I just want to say thank you. I think the public needs to understand the amount of work the city put in as well. We have an integrated EOC, and staff from both organizations supported one another. Elected officials, Mayor Minions and Councillor Haggard played pivotal roles in communication. And so it's really important to acknowledge and reflect on the fact that our collaboration, even in an event like this, is extremely valuable. I think we're all tired and burnt out from it, but at least it's shared equally. Next slide, please. Emergency support services. I think the big thing here to flag is the sheer volume of work that has gone into all this. There's 4,661 training volunteer hours that went into 2025. Oh, an activation. 600 plus activation hours. We had 29 evacuees, 13 pets evacuated, 12 overall ESS activations, and 30 team members involved. Important to flag that your fire department uses ESS quite a bit. When there is a structural fire, ESS is called in, and this is part of these additional activations. So their activations are much higher than our full EOC activations. Next slide, please. Mount Underwood. There again, we are going to be having a debrief with the elected group. We're coordinating on that. But suffice to say that this emergency was more than just a fire, as we know, and dragged on for quite some time, which had a significant impact on both of our operational plans and both of the organizations. Fair to say that one of the key learnings in 2026 is going to be how we can better have business continuity built in. So what areas are we going to sacrifice and stop in order to make sure that other areas that are bigger priorities continue? And so we're going to recalibrate how we do that, because these longer events are really hard on the organizations. Next slide, please. Alberni Valley Emergency Program 2026 priorities. We're going to continue strengthening our relationship, and as I said, just working on that business continuity side. We are going to continue focusing in on a more structure and support for our volunteers, and making sure that we're not burning out our volunteers as well. I think that the primary objective with all of the work and all of the training that we're going to do is becoming more effective in our support, so we can withstand withstand multiple and longer standing events. Next slide, please. The grants that we do have in 2026 are for emergency support services. We're still doing the cultural awareness and safety plan in collaboration with 7 of the 10 First Nations within the regional district. We have an emergency operations center training that we have a group of staff attending in Tofino in March. And of course, as I mentioned, FireSmart is with us for another 2 years, and we are now staffed up in that area. Next slide. With FireSmart, the last 2 years had 265 home assessments, 38 residential rebates, 55 public engagement events, 45 critical infrastructure assessments, and 162 curbside pickup requests. Just so you know, when people do implement FireSmart for their homes, part of the grant is that we can send a contractor over to collect and chip all of that debris. So it's part of the service, part of the grant. Next slide, please. So general government. General government covers the areas of asset management, administration, HR, IT, records management, the Alberni Health Network, bylaws and policy development and implementation, obviously our general office supplies, implementation, application, and reporting out on grants, building maintenance, and special projects. So it's an area that's quite involved. And I will flag because the ACRD got some bad press last year around being in the bottom 5% in terms of efficiency. I flagged that with this slide. The reason why that came up is the formula that CFIB was using looked at general government services as overall administration. And what we do in the ACRD is that there's a number of these that are pooled under general government, and they are not individual services. And as a result of that, we look way less efficient. In 2020, let's keep on going. I know we only have 10 minutes here. The big things for 2026 is we do have our collective agreement negotiations taking place this year, and we do have our board remuneration review taking place. We're also going to be changing our software and the framework for how we do our meetings with the board. Next slide, please. Okay, so these special projects. So we're still working on the second phase of a business case for a new AACRD administration office. We're at the point we're at capacity. I think the city has been dealing with similar things in different ways. We are going to be working with key stakeholders, including the city, on primary care recruitment and retention. Our transportation committee is looking at the next phase of identifying a common vision and an implementation of a lobbying strategy for an alternative option to Highway 4. And we are working with the Alberni Valley Drag Racing Association, still looking at finding them a permanent home, and we are making some slow but steady inroads there. The Island Corridor Foundation feasibility and visioning is coming to a conclusion. There may be some next steps, and that's going to be fleshed out and developed with the guidance of Tashat and Hupachesset. We are working on a West Banfield dock feasibility because Transport Canada is looking to offload that. And I'll take this opportunity again to say the fact that we're doing the feasibility does not mean we're taking the dock. If we're just doing the feasibility of what that would look like, very important to flag that. And then with our airport here in the Alberni Valley, we are working on a protocol agreement with Tashat and Hupachesset, similar to what we've done with the Tlaoquit Nation on the West Coast. Next slide. Alberni Valley Aquatics Facility. In 2024, we wrapped up phase 1, and then we were progressing down phase 2. A decision was made to do a more in-depth review of a renovation. We just received that report early in 2026. And we're now at the point where we're putting all that together with, I think the biggest discussion is around apportionment. My crystal ball would say we will not have time to appropriately engage the community to have a referendum in 2026. I know we really wanted to, but I think realistically, we're looking at 2027. We have to be able to figure out who's paying for what in that apportionment model in a way that everyone is willing to accept. Where we have gone is every Everyone in the valley has agreed that we're either all in or all out. And by default of doing that, we need more time to negotiate these details because it kind of gives everyone a veto. So there's a lot of interest here that we have to keep on moving forward in. Next slide, please. Hospital district, I can continue in this. It's a separate legal entity, but as Terry said, same taxpayers. We were really hoping to see the Tofino General Hospital concept plan move forward this year. Unfortunately, about a month ago, the province told us that they were not. Part of this is the new structure that they have with the Ministry of Infrastructure that has a new veto on some of these big projects. And so we were tracking well until they said no. So now we're back to the drawing board to figure that one out. But that does mean that ultimately the request stays at its base level of 550,000, and there's no change in the requisition from last year. So it's still the 1.8 million as we build up reserves geared towards Tofino General Hospital. A reminder to the public that Tofino paid towards our West Coast General Hospital here, and that's the way the model works. We each get our turn, we each support each other. And so, happy to announce that we have no more debt on the renovation on that West Coast General Hospital. Next slide, please. This one is for you, Terry.
Thank you. Yeah, so the city's tax rate this year is going to increase by 9.2%, and the thank you. The average assessed value actually has decreased slightly based on what I found on BC Assessment. So we do also try to put an estimated tax impact. So we think on the average household, which this year would be about $509,000, would be about $21.43. So kind of gives you an idea line by line there. And that is it for our presentation, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Questions from council? Councillor Haggard.
First of all, I want to say what an honor it has been to be on the ACRD board for the last 3+ years and to work with staff and the board at that level. It's been really a good learning experience for me. I've really enjoyed it. And I just want to take this time to, again, thank and recognize the staff of the ACRD and also the city for the many hundreds of hours that they put in for the Mount Underwood fire. I don't think people in the public recognize how hard everyone worked. And as Daniel said, we're going to be doing a debrief because you can always learn from what you did and do things better. Hopefully not ever again, but in case it does happen, we can do things better. And one positive I think will come out of it is people take more advantage of the Fire Smart program. I've even been out after the fire. I was hearing people going, "Oh, I cleaned my eaves troughs and I've cleaned the weeds around my house." So I think there will be some positives coming out of that. So thanks for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, thanks very much for the presentation. Have a great day. All right, we will move on to unfinished business. Item number 1, we have temporary use permit for 3868 Wood Ave.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. For consideration today is the temporary use permit at 3868 Wood Avenue, and the owners of 3868 Wood Avenue have applied for a temporary use permit for a period of 3 years. The permit would authorize up to 7 recreational vehicles to be used as permanent dwellings in a campground style arrangement, which you can see in the air photo on screen. With this permit, council is being asked to consider the uses of the land and if this use is appropriate for the property. Administration is recommending that the temporary use permit not be approved. The permit does not meet council policy in the OCP for temporary uses and also does not align with OCP land use or the zoning bylaw. And primarily, RVs are not designed for permanent habitation, and long-term use creates health and safety risks, including risk of electrical fire. If council does not approve the permit, the owner will be required to comply with the zoning and remove the RVs from the property if the zoning regulations cannot be met. If council approves the permit, the owner should obtain a business license with the required fire safety inspections and submit for review an approved fire safety plan, an electrical assessment report, and a site servicing plan. Administration recommends that council not issue the permit and pass a motion to not enforce the zoning bylaw until July 1st, 2026. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will go to questions from council, and then we do have an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions or speak as well. Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was going to make the motion and put it on the floor for discussion. Is that preemptory with having other people ask questions?
I think because we have a
Hands.
formal opportunity for members of the public to speak to the application, I would suggest we wait. Okay. Other questions from council? Okay, then we'll go to opportunity for members of the public. If anyone here would like to speak to the application, just put your hand up. And sorry, I'm going to go to the speaker at the back first, and then I'll get you second. Thanks.
Yeah, good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. I have a signed petition from, my name is Major Rye, 3908 Redford Street, Port Alberni, yeah. This is all the direct neighbors to the RV park, just saying that they lived next to the RV for whatever number of years. And they have no issue with, you know, the activities and the residents and the operations of the business at the time. So I'll just pass this on. Okay. So our understanding is the zoning is regulated as a RV campground, and we are in compliance of that. We also recognize that RVs are not meant for year-round permanent residents. This is not our decision for the person to live there, that's the person's decision to live there. We realize that the limit is 90 days. We are looking at either creating a new daily limit, whether that's 90 days or 180 days or whatever, I don't know. But from our business perspective, it makes more sense for us to rent it nightly or daily. We are not looking to rent monthly. It's no advantage to us. But when people do come to us and they say, look, we stayed here 3 months, we have nowhere else to move to, can we stay for additional month? Or, you know, the campground's open in the summer, can we stay till the summer until the campground opens up? Then it's really not nice for us to say, no, you gotta go, we gotta make more money. So we provide the opportunity to let the people stay if they want to stay. But if council wishes to have them out, that's your decision. But we want to be in compliance as operating as a campground. Okay, did you have any questions or?
Councillor Solda does have a question.
I do. So this has been an issue for many years. I mean, coming back and forth with you since I've been on council. And I'm just kind of curious to know why. Okay, so you said you don't want to make it like a all year round campsite, but that's a choice that your company has made to a campground. So I'm just kind of curious to know, like.
Well, the RV campground is, it is an RV campground. So it's meant for year-round, camping for people that want to come and go. So whether they choose to come for a night, come for a week, come for a month, that's up to the people, right? But the RV campground as a business is established, and it's been established since, I believe it's been a campground from the 1940s, right? So.
Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Mr. Rye, for coming today. So we talk about the campground usage. Is there any potential that it's not just RV campground? Would you allow tents? Would you allow
No.
Temporary?
No
such like
tents.
that?
It's specific to just RVs or people that have their own insurance and, usually a newer modern trailer with CSA approving and have their own washroom facility built in. And then we provide the septic the hydro, and the electrical.
Just, and maybe this isn't for you, maybe it's for staff. So just if a temporary, or sorry, if I just read this correctly here, talking about business license application, approved fire safety plan, electrical assessment report, if it moves that way, does that mean that, because it's still a campsite, so does that mean there has to be like washroom facilities on that property? Or would the washroom, if it does, would an RV have their own facilities? Would that take that away? The necessity of that? I know it's kind of one of those weird questions, but sorry.
Well, I can start, and then the manager of planning can add in. Just want to be clear, council's being asked to consider a temporary use permit for these trailers to be used over the long term, not a campground. A campground is a permitted use in the C4 zone if it applied for a business license and met a substantial number of conditions of use. But what council's being asked to consider today is a temporary use permit for the long-term residential use of trailers and campers. So I please just want to be clear, that's what council's being asked to consider, not a campground.
Thank you for clarifying that. Other questions from council? Okay. Thank you, Major.
Okay.
And I'll go to the next gentleman here.
Just wanted to add one thing. As far as the temporary use permit goes, we are looking to, in the long term, we want to develop the property. And the goal is, ideally, considering the location, it would be ground floor commercial with some residential above. It's just the current state and the last few years, like economically, business has not been doing well. It's been year after year. Like it was COVID, and then the Cameron Lake fire, Bamfield fire, Wesley Wedge fire, and other just little things that as business owners, really affect us through the summer and year round. Plus with increasing costs as far as employment, insurance, which is year over year increasing, property taxes, which is year over year increasing. Like it's just not financially possible to say, hey, we want to develop this today, right? We are looking to find a way to extend this to a point where we can and still, continue operations and cover our costs on a daily basis to get to that point, right? So.
Thank you. Councillor Solda.
It's just interesting because when you're saying you want a longer term stay at I look at the Alberni, the Pacific Rim Mall, when I see 20 trailers parked there overnight because they can't find a campground, and it's really frustrating for that. When you have the space, if you didn't have a long-term and it was a campground, and eventually that whole space up in that Pacific Rim Mall with a hotel going in there, it's going to take away a lot of the parking up there too. So, I just.
And I understand, and for us, on a nightly basis we'd generate more money renting them nightly or weekly. And that'd be the ideal model for us too. But, to displace somebody that's already staying there and saying, hey, I have nowhere to go, can I stay additional time? That's tough to say no to somebody, right? If you guys say no for me, that's up to you. But given the summers that we've had and limited number of tourists coming in, then we'd also have sitting empty spots as well, so. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, and I'll go to the gentleman in the front here.
Hi, my name is Jake Ingram. I'd first like to just address Cindy there about the RVs parking up at Walmart there. The vehicles up there that are parking up there, they're not about campers. They're about people that are parking it, selling vehicles. It's totally unproportional to the aspect of people camping in that parking lot. What I would like to ask the council is, people have a need for an RV site. Port Alberni doesn't really offer that. Can we make it so, if you have time durations, like you can't pick and choose who wants to be there. So if you make it so the public has to sign a 1-week lease, what's to prevent that person from re-signing that over and over? There is a real problem, and I'm glad the council's looking at it, but some places aren't the same as others. Some people need those places. They support families, they support grandkids, they support other things. So for people to put the whole into one basket, there are people that are greedy, overcrowd, cause hazards. This family doesn't. This family looks after the community, and we need it. So I hope you individually look at things and make the right choice, because you guys have the ability to help people or hurt people. And I hope you help people. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Yep, come on forward.
Hi. I was unaware of that. Oh, sorry, Paulette Parkin. And I just recently stopped working at Wood School as a children's counselor. And before that time, I was unaware of that campground or RV site. And I have to say that I've had clients live there, and they're the working poor. And we've been talking, and you know, we've been talking in this town about housing people and how to house them and who to house and where to house them and everything. And the children that I worked with were in that campground, in those travel trailers. And I don't think, just knowing what I do about those the parent, there wasn't two parents, the parent, that they didn't have any money to go anywhere else. That site is clean. That site is organized. That site is safe. And the children and the parents are happy there. They can walk to Wood School. They can walk to the skating rink, to the pool, to the library, all of those things. There are working poor that live there. And I think that you should take that into consideration.
Thank you very much. Yep, come on forward.
Okay, is it on? Yep, okay. My name's John Godfrey. I live there as well, and my wife and I have lived there for a few years now. When we moved to Port Alberni and moved into the fifth wheel, it wasn't our intention to make it a permanent thing. Unfortunately, with housing costs, and because I struggled to find work originally, we haven't been able to afford anything. I recently went around with another lady I know that was looking for a mobile home. She wanted to move from Nanaimo to Port Alberni. The cheapest decent mobile home she could find was $250,000, $260,000. I make $20 an hour. I can't afford something like that. So what I would like to say is I totally get what Major Ray said. You know, financially it's better for them to be daily, weekly, but we've become a community there. The fellow that spoke before, Jake, he's a couple trailers over. You know, we get together sometimes in the summer. I do have a barbecue that's a proper propane barbecue on a stand. And, you know, we'll have a little barbecue of some salmon or something. The couple that live in the mobile home beside us, older couple, have some health issues. You know, they have my number. If something happens, they know to call me. Yes, I know it wasn't properly zoned for a permanent thing, and that's what the discussion is today. But yeah, I just want to share that it is very much a community. My wife and I even have a cat I take for a walk, and the neighbors in the area, probably some of the ones that have signed the petition, have gotten to know us, and you know, we'll stop and chat, and they'll pet the cat, and just so yeah, we're not there as a problem. And in my opinion, you know, if there are some things that need to be dealt with to lessen risks of things, hey, I'll do what I can to help, rather than having to worry about moving. So, you know, I've been just over 3 years in Port Alberni, and I want to keep this my home. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Councillor. So I'm in favor of those people who came and speak to you. I know this is in your power. It's not like that you can't do it. The reason for that one is those people, if you open for the tent site or anything, look what's happening out to the other communities where people forced to put a tent and they can do whatever the other neighborhood doesn't want it. Those people who stay there, the owner of that place, check their resume, check their who they are, what they're doing, right? And their activities. So if you want a safe neighborhood and nobody has a problem, ask them what you want to do. If there is a no fence, you want to put a fence or more light or whatever. If the place is not clean, you can do it. We know that the bylaw allow you to up to 90 days, but they can do a 90-day, then kick them out for 1 day and where they will go. And who will force them to go out? I want to know. Because even you want to kick out somebody from your basement, the, the government law tell you to give the notice, then they will put a date, then they will ask for those people, why you kicking them out? So I'm just asking you to think about those people, what they can do. Unless you take them out, and then there's open market, they can rent. Anybody can put a tent there, pay them $50 or $20, they can do whatever they want to do. And what you're going to do? Look at 3rd Avenue, what's happening? All our business people are crying because you can't force somebody from your property outside, they do all the bad stuff. And everybody knows what we can do. So those people are not bad people who are living there. They are good neighbors, and I ask you to think, give them extension, not a permanent. So this ball is up to you. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Hara. Hara Chopra. Thank you. I think we know its name. Thank you. Would any other members of the public like to speak? Okay. Comments, additional comments from council? Questions? Councillor Mealy.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. So just comments. So again, and we've discussed this at the previous council meeting, and I still have the same feeling. It's I live about a block and a half away. It is not a nuisance property, so that's where I'd like to start. In fact, I'm glad to see the gentleman here who walks his cat, because I drive by and I go, hey, there's a cat on a leash. Okay, gotcha. Yes, it is. Thank you for bringing that smile to me every day when you do. So again, it's I understand the situation. It's zoned highway commercial. It is to be used as that in the future. But in saying that, we do, and again, so I had a hard time at the last meeting, and I still have a hard time saying no to the temporary use permit, just merely because the use that it is right now is not a nuisance. And we talk about the working poor here and people who need housing, and I know, I'm well aware of living paycheck to paycheck and ensuring that my bills are paid, and it's not easy. So I can sympathize with the people that live there, but again, it's not a nuisance property, and I have a hard time saying no to the temporary use permit at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Verbrucki.
We talk about could we put in fences or make it better in that way? And what about the fire hazard? Could we put in a system for fighting fire? That would make me feel a lot better, because RVs are prone to fires. So are house trailers. Yeah, could a fire system be put in place?
Councillor Mealy.
Sorry, I just want to go back, and I know there is an emotion on the floor, but the alternatives and options that are there, much like my question earlier, and I'll get back to that if it gets to the floor, but a part of that is an approved fire safety plan. So that if there's a recommendation from staff to, if we are to issue the temporary use permit, there are following conditions, and one is an approved safety plan, or fire safety plan.
Absolutely. Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I will start with what the application is that is before us. This is not an application to cast moral aspersions on people that live in our community. Whether they live in a trailer or a tent or an apartment or a large house or a pickup truck or wherever they live. That is not an issue that we're debating today, and it is also not a reason to allow unsafe housing to continue. This council has put a lot of effort into eradicating substandard living conditions within this community. RV trailers, by all evidence that has been put before us, are substandard living accommodations, not the people that live in them, but the accommodations themselves because of their design, build, fire retention, and ability to secure the people that live inside. The people that live inside who are as deserving as anyone else for proper security. This matter has been essentially before the City Council for some 20 years. There was a temporary use permit provided for some 20 years ago. There was an extension provided some 17 years ago. And that was the end of the matter. Now, I think that was the end of the matter because, in my opinion, there is no authority for council to revisit this matter. However, I will not stand on that point, that there is no authority. But if, in fact, what we're dealing with is simply an application for a temporary use permit to provide a RV park, the owner says they want to run a campground. As the zoning is right now, the owner can run a campground. The owner does not need a temporary use permit to run a campground. So this entire discussion and application, in my opinion, is moot. This application that they're applying for is not a temporary use. It is a continuing use till sometime in the future when they might develop the site, which they haven't done for some 20 years. That is not a temporary use. This is not an issue of the owner of the site, the business at the site, the individuals that live at the site, how well it's run, how clean it is. This is an issue of contravening zoning. There is a site directly across the street that a few weeks ago was denied an application for a temporary use permit for these very same reasons, at least in my mind. Of course, council voted with their consciences, but so they may not have had these reasons, but these are my reasons. It would be inappropriate, at best, to grant a temporary use permit to continue activity across the street from an area where the temporary use permit was denied and the very same activity is not permitted. Now, when I say the very same activity is not permitted, that applies to almost all of the zoning in Port Alberni. So the site cannot be justified by saying, oh, it's a clean site. If that's the only justification there was for a temporary use permit, then I think I'm going to open up an RV campground on my property. And maybe we can open up one on the, pardon me?
If we could make sure we don't have comments from members of the public, it's really important that we allow members of council to speak and that we don't interrupt.
We could even open up a RV park on the back parking lot of City Hall. The point being that there would be no restrictions. The point being that this community functions on bylaws and regulations and zoning that are enforced for the benefit of the entire community. It is only fair to all residents if the same rules are applied fairly to all residents. So for these reasons, I am opposed to a temporary use permit. I don't believe we have the authority. I don't believe it's a temporary use that's being applied for. And I also don't believe that it is to the benefit of any other property in this community or homeowner in this community to grant it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Dame.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I've got a few comments I would like to make. I want to start by acknowledging that the reality behind this application. The people living here are responding to very real housing pressures in Port Alberni, and also on a broader perspective as well. And we have to have genuine empathy for that. I think this council knows all too well the housing issues that many in Port Alberni are facing. And I also want to be clear that this is not a criticism of the site or its operators. It's well run, sounds like it's well regarded, and that does matter. But my concern is, once again, and I say once again because I've made this point a few times recently, about the particular tool that we're being asked to use in this situation. A temporary use permit is meant to be transitional. It should move a site from its current state toward a clearly defined end. And in this case, I don't see that transition being explained to us in a way that gives me confidence that there is one. This property has had a temporary use permit before, and we haven't seen meaningful change or a path towards something different since that time. So without that, it is difficult to view this as temporary. There's also the concern of a precedent being set, and that if we continue to approve permits like this, we risk creating a situation where long-term uses are effectively established through repeated temporary approvals, which makes it difficult to apply policies fairly and consistently. And of course, underlying all of this is safety. Our bylaws around dwelling units are not arbitrary. They exist to ensure proper servicing, fire safety, and living standards. And when we make exceptions, even with good intentions, because I think we can all see that that a lot of good has happened at this site, and it is very difficult and painful to deny something like this. But we have to be confident that those standards are being met and that we're not responsible for putting people in vulnerable situations. This isn't a rejection of the need. It is intended to be, if this is intended to be a long-term residential use, then it should come forward through a proper process so it can be fully and transparently evaluated. I am open to solutions and I appreciate the intent here, but without a clear transition, a defined outcome, and confidence in the long-term safety of the site, I'm not comfortable supporting this TUP. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I will make some comments since I wasn't here the last time we discussed one of these. And I think also some comments just as it relates to the use of temporary use permits. I hear the concern that have been brought forward at this meeting and prior meetings when we discuss temporary use permits and the need for them to have a very clear next step. I think that is a very fair request from members of council. And that said, I think it's somewhat idealistic and not always necessarily recognizing that the transition in Port Alberni might be longer. I would say that we have had an economy that is different from what other communities in BC may have had for many years. So what might be appropriate in other communities, a 3-year temporary use permit renewed 2 times, I think, may not be sufficient in Port Alberni, and I think that there's a lot of very real reasons for that. So while I think it would be fantastic to be able to say the next step is a rezoning, a multi-use commercial building with housing above, you can rezone all you want, but the land will sit vacant if there's no market to develop it. I personally would like to see this enabled in a way that maintains safety. I think that, we've talked about this before in the time I've been on council, and one of the biggest concerns that the fire department brought forward at that time was proper spacing between the units as one of the biggest ways to manage safety. I don't want to prescribe what that might be, but I do know that when that came to council maybe 10 or 11 years ago, that was a big concern that came forward from the fire department, and it was maintained by the property owners, and it has continued to be maintained by the property owners, which is nice. We saw a very similar situation in the regional district that was actually, made to remove the RVs, and we had very much the opposite of it from the property owner. We offered a temporary use permit for something like 20 RVs, came back and there was 30 RVs. Issued a warning, came back, and there was 34 RVs. This property owner has not done that. They've worked with the city, they've kept spacing between them, and they've continued to offer it in as safe a way as you can. I don't want to at all disregard the comments that have been made by other members of council because, as I often do, Councillor Patola, I agree with you fully, but I also don't. I do agree. I wish we lived in a world where everything was black and white in a way that worked, but I think sometimes our job as elected officials is to find the gray area that actually works for our community. I think that this property has worked for a long time. I don't think that's the permanent use of this property, but I don't know that our community is at a point where it's ready to support a different use. So, you know, I echo still like the comments that have been made around concerns for safety, but at the same time, I recognize that other communities have found ways to make allowances for RV communities for the time being, recognizing that the severity of the housing shortage that we are in. So I don't think it's permanent housing. I would love for it to not be permanent housing, but I would also love for everyone to have a permanent home. And in our community today, everyone does not have a permanent home. So I would ask council to find a way to support this, to enable it for another temporary period, and reevaluate at the end of the temporary period to determine if our community is still at a place where it's needed. I would say that today our community is at a place where it's needed. And just like we did on the trailers on 4th Avenue, where we considered many times throughout the process, over a period of several years, we considered shutting those trailers down, but we didn't because we recognized that there was nowhere for the residents to go. Once we secured an additional site, and I know this is not the same because those were, very, problematic and challenged trailers. This is not the same, but we didn't take action on those residences until we had somewhere for the people who lived there to move in the tiny homes next door. Then we took action and shut them down. I would ask council to find a way to consider approving this application temporarily, on a temporary basis, and reconsider in 3 years if our community is still at a point where we need it. So looking at the options, I think that's option number 2. That would be my preference, and that would be what I would like to support today. Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good news. Good news. In fact, there is a way to find a middle ground. It's the process that has been established for many years. Oh my gosh, I'm even going to say longer than the 20 years this project has been in violation. For even longer than that, there has been a way to find a middle ground, a way to actually proceed forward and address all of the concerns in one spot by applying for a zoning bylaw amendment, the proper process, because it clearly is a long-term use. And a zoning bylaw amendment, Madam Mayor, and I'm not chastising you, but it doesn't have to be for a commercial ground level with apartments above. A zoning bylaw amendment could be for the exact use that is being used right now. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment would be to allow proper input from all parties concerned, from the local residents, such as those who have signed this petition, from the fire department that may or may not have concerns, from the zoning department and planning department that may be able to offer recommendations of things that would improve the situation and the safety there. That's what the zoning bylaw amendment process is for, not the temporary use permit. It's the right way because that's the way the legislation is designed, and there's no need to worry about closing our eyes or smudging the lines so that they're grayer. We could just do what we've been empowered to do with the tools that we've been empowered to use.
Thank you. My preference would not be a zoning bylaw change because I don't view this as a permanent use and I don't want it to be enabled as a permanent use. For that reason, I would support a temporary use, but not a permanent. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and appreciate the comments all around. I'd just like to state that it was stated by the proponent that they don't even think it's a permanent use as well. So I think we're all in agreement that the permanent use of the property is going to be different what it is today. But and I do appreciate your comment so eloquently put. When is that going to be? Port Alberni's economy seen something we're a little different than everybody else. Port Alberni's always a little different than everybody else. That's who we are. So, but I just want to reiterate, and I appreciate your comments, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that council not issue temporary use permit number 24-01 at 3868 Wood Avenue There's a second motion that carries with that. And in fact, I'll make that now, and if council wishes to divide. I also move that council direct the Community Safety and Social Development Department to not enforce the zoning bylaw at 3868 Wood Avenue until July 1st, 2026, to allow tenants to find alternate accommodation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Dame, and I will ask that we divide. So they're both considered moved and seconded. Comments on the first, on not issuing the temporary use permit? Councillor Haggard.
I guess I agree with everybody, so I'm really not sure how I'm even going to vote yet, but this is very difficult. I agree that this housing is needed, and you're very valuable business members of the community, and I know this site has been kept up very nicely, and I appreciate that you have to live there. As she said, the working poor, and I get that. There's many people in our community that are in that very same situation. I think what I struggle with is you had a temporary use permit, you got an extension, and did nothing for 7 years until you got caught. You didn't come in and do the proper thing. And we have turned down another temporary use permit for the same thing. So what stops that person coming back? And you talked about 4th Avenue. First, it was just a couple of trailers, and we thought, okay, that's okay. Then a couple more and a couple more came in, and that place is not kept nice. And you guys do, like I said, you do a fantastic job, but what happens tomorrow if it's not nice? So I'm really struggling here, but thank you. I didn't help the situation at all, I'm sorry.
Thank you. And I will just say that if council, and I recognize it's not the motion on the floor, but if council did decide to consider a temporary use permit, there within that structure, there is room for a capped number of RVs and units and standards. Councillor Dane.
Thanks. I've heard a couple times mentioned that just regarding the permanence of this and how this isn't intended to be permanent, but I would ask at what point do we consider it permanent when it's already been decades and we don't have any indication that after 3 years there would be necessarily any change. So I assume that in 3 years we'd be looking at another temporary use permit. I think that we're talking permanence at that point. I'm not sure how we could view something that has gone on for, is it 20 years that we're? And then we're looking at another 3 with no plan. So then it'd be another 3. I mean, we're looking at 25 to 30 years of a temporary situation. And that worries me just in terms of precedence. As Councillor Haggard said, we have already denied a similar one, not identical. And I do think that each of these needs to be looked at in a vacuum in its own merits, but I'm just not sure that this is the proper tool, and if there's another way that we could do this to use the tools that we are supposed to be using, then that would be my preference.
Councillor Solda.
This is so interesting because this has been an issue since 2002, basically, ongoing. But and there was a time when there was too many trailers and they had to do a clean up and have a certain amount of trailers and spaces and it was complied. But I'm just kind of curious with staff, is there a cap on how many trailers? Like, I haven't opened up this report to reread it, but is there a cap of how many trailers are allowed in this particular space?
I don't have it in front of me, but I think the manager of planning has the report in front of them. I suspect there was a specified number in the permit, but maybe the manager of planning could clarify that exactly.
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Solda, this temporary use permit is specific to 7 RVs. And within the zoning for campgrounds, should they be complied with, there's a minimum size or a minimum amount of space that each trailer has to have, which in the end ultimately limits the number that can be fit on a site. Thank you.
So the next question is there sewer hookup for each of the trailers, or do they have to empty a tank and H2O going from trailer to trailer? And what was the other question? And a business license, how is that business license?
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Solda. Those are details that would be sorted through if the applicant does apply for a business license. That's sort of the process. If council approves the TUP, we would also require that those services be signed off on by a professional prior to issuing the permit.
So following up, so there is no separate sewer hookup for each of the trailers? And also, is there a business license? Am I hearing there's not, or am I mishearing that?
Madam Mayor, we have never received a business license application to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you, and I'll just welcome the applicant up to speak to the sanitary sewer question.
Is it on? Yeah. So each, there are 7 pads, so each trailer has an individual pad designated for itself and has according spacing as previously discussed. And then each has its own septic, has its own hydro, and has its own power hookup individually. And what was the other question? It was the business license is operated with the Alberni Inn. So the Alberni Inn operates, it's all, we consider it all as one. And people, tenants who, or anybody looking to rent usually makes a reservation through the hotel, and then we reserve a spot pad for them. So you know, if a separate business license is requested, we could accommodate that. But again, the operations would be all running through the same business.
Other questions from council? Councillor Haggard.
What is our legal responsibility if we approve this and the person that we declined comes back and reapplies again?
Our Director of Development Services.
Well, I'm not sure about our legal responsibility, other than if council was to approve this, I would expect a call tomorrow from that applicant wishing for their application to be reconsidered by council. We would look at the legislation, but quite likely, you would probably see that in front of you. That's what I would anticipate. I can't say that for sure. That would be that applicant has talked about that site with us, but I'm sure they would be paying attention to this decision.
And my apologies, I wasn't there when we had this discussion. Otherwise, I would have had the same comments. Okay. Not seeing any further comments, the motion is moved and seconded. Motion has been made to not issue the temporary use permit. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. No, motion carried. Wasn't it me, one opposed? 3. Who, sorry? Apologies, motion carried. I did not see Councillor Solda's hand.
She kind of went like this.
Okay, Councillor Solda, put your hand forward.
Please help.
So I can see you. Okay, would somebody like to make an alternative motion? Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll move option 2. Council authorize the Director of Corporate Services to issue a TUP 24-01 for 3868 Wood Avenue once the following conditions have been met to the satisfaction of Director of Development Services. A, business license application. B, approved fire safety plan. C, electrical assessment report. And D, site servicing plan prepared by qualified and professional.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? I'll
Madam
second,
Ma-
and then
no.
I'll go to Councillor Patola.
Thank you. Point of order, there is already a motion on the floor. So I
Yeah.
will withdraw that prior motion, which was the one that was separated. In case there's any need for further clarity, I could read it, but I think we understand which one's being withdrawn. Yes? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that point of order. Okay, motion has been withdrawn that was previously moved and seconded, and that was just to delay enforcement, as it is more related to the first motion that was defeated. Motion has been made by Councillor Mealy for option 2, and I've seconded that. Discussion. Councillor Mealy.
And now I can ask about washrooms. So again, going back to it's an RV campground, does that mean that there has to be a washroom site, or does each individual RV having their own washroom, if they do, would satisfy that if that is a requirement?
Just to clarify again, council is not being asked to consider campground use. So this temporary use permit would enable the long-term residential use of these campers and RVs. Now, most of these probably have a washroom in them. And if they're connected to the sanitary sewer and water, then but please be clear. I want to be clear. This is not being asked to be a campground. The council is being asked to consider the temporary use permit for the long-term residential use of travel trailers.
Thank you. And I do note we have a member of the public with your hand up. Unfortunately, the time for input on this application has already passed, and we don't have another time until the end of the meeting. Okay, thank you. Councillor Solda.
So just before we go to this, another motion here, would there be a cap on, the same kind of cap on the trailers? Or could we now, if we're going with the long-term, can they do, is it going to be 7? Or how does that work now?
As indicated by the manager planner, the temporary use permit specifies and limits the number of travel trailers that council is being asked to consider.
Just making sure.
Further comments? Okay, motion has been moved and seconded. Seeing no further comments on the motion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And then I don't think we need the other one at this point. Okay, then we will move on to staff reports. Item number 1, RCMP quarterly report. Assuming we have RCMP here for that report.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My quarterly report will cover the period of October through to December of 2025. And if we could move to the next slide, please. As always, I like to include a little bit of a photo opportunity before we get started. Just to comment on that would be to say that we had an excellent turnout this year to Remember and Stay, with 11 of our officers attending the local Port Alberni ceremony in red serge. Several others attended in uniform of the day or informally in no uniform at all, just to simply participate in whatever capacity they could. Also into December, we had a Cram the Cruiser event. It was a first of its kind in what I understand to be about 20 years. It was an event that was arranged and held on December 13th. This endeavor was made possible by the extraordinary efforts of Constable Barry Lee, who is in our Indigenous Police section. And he secured the partnerships and commitments from several others to make this come together very, very quickly. The initiative yielded 805 pounds in food, 275 pounds in toys and clothing, as well as $2,271 in cash, cards, and checks that were all submitted to the Salvation Army. Next slide, please.
I'm sorry, we can't have comments from members of the public while we are listening to the presentation.
So moving to operations, that's just an index there of what the topics that I'll be covering. But if we move to the next slide under the area of operations, in our third quarter, it was predicted based on the pace of calls for service that we'd be in the vicinity of 14,020 calls in total for 2025. We fell short of that by 69 calls to arrive at a total of 13,951 calls for the year. Noteworthy is that this was still a 4.8% increase from 2024, given the increase by 670 calls generally. Specific to the fourth quarter for 2025 and using an anticipated drop by 15% as seen in 2024, to anticipate that that quarter would be at 3,451, there was an actual greater decrease by 17.2%, or 3,364 calls for service. Next slide, please. Under curfew checks, 1,285 curfew checks have been conducted by Port Alberni RCMP in 2025. This is 299 more than were conducted in 2024, or just over 30%. Breach of condition offenses are among the highest found among all of our call types that we attend, whether as discovered through proactive efforts to ensure people are at home when they are supposed to be, or as arising in those situations police are called to where individuals police are dealing with can be found, pardon me, commensurate with the issue at hand to also be in breach of their conditions. Port Alberni currently has 31 individuals on conditions, 12 of which remain on 24-hour house arrest. Next slide, please. Under traffic enforcement, in our fourth quarter, 164 traffic enforcement contacts were made by Port Alberni RCMP officers. As before, these numbers do not include impaired driving enforcement by criminal code or immediate roadside prohibition, which is captured as statistics in the next slides under areas of operation. However, for October through December 2025, Vancouver Island Highway Patrol also augmented our efforts and has helped to provide traffic enforcement, creating an additional 207 contacts with 4 investigations generated specifically by them. Vancouver Island Highway Patrol, when scheduled to deploy to Port Alberni, will provide enforcement at locations both in and just outside of the city, as well as to locations both east and west of here. Operations by area, we'll start with the city of Port Alberni. Total calls for this quarter are 2,802, a rise of 6.6%, or 184 calls this year when compared to last year for this same quarter. October, November, and December for this quarter reflect a steady pace of calls at 924, 929, and 949 for the months of October, November, and December. When comparing against the prior quarter, Q3 for July, August, and September, where call volumes were 1,071, 1,136, and 1,064, there really has been little to no abatement in policing demands as would otherwise be expected moving into the winter months. Statistically, some of the activity types appear relatively static, but concerning, arguably, is their pervasiveness, while poignantly assaults, domestic violence, thefts, and impaired driving prevails. Moving into the ACRD, total calls for Q4 are 394, a decrease from 2024 by 21 calls. Call types that prevail are similar to what has been seen in the city, the municipal grid. Moving on to First Nations, calls for Q4 are the same as 2024. And again, there is consistency in the crime types that occur, as in all other areas of in this police jurisdiction. Thank you. For mental health related calls, the total number of mental health related calls with Port Alberni's policing jurisdiction for 2025 was 938. Of these calls, 2,003 resulted in apprehensions by police, wherein we are compelled to take these individuals before a physician for further assessment and or treatment. For 2025, this means we experienced a 21.64% apprehension rate, or rather approximately 1 in every 5 persons that we deal with were experiencing symptoms acutely enough to warrant our need to get them before a doctor for further assessment. When comparing this against statistics generated for 2021 through 2025, the numbers start to look like a 15.25% apprehension rate, 15.45% apprehension rate, graduating to 21%, and then again, roughly 21%. This steady increase, with the biggest jump appearing to be in 2022 to 2023, but between end of 2021 and end of 2025, some 5 years, there's been a 6.4% increase in apprehensions overall. With hospital wait times being exorbitant everywhere, this is an increased tax on RCMP or police time, where members are spending time in hospitals versus on the road. And so we've been tracking this. In October, our average hospital wait time was 52 minutes. In November, average hospital wait time was 87 minutes, and in December, it was 90 minutes. When we compared that against Q3, July was at 110.5 minutes, August was at 78 minutes, and September was at 76. Crime rate. Thank you. The first table showing the crime rate trend for Port Alberni for the last 10 years has been updated to include the values for 2024. Noteworthy is that the crime rate for the city of Port Alberni has come down from 179 to 169. and the provincial rate has also come down from 47 to 40. Despite this, when compared against provincial average values, however, municipal and provincial units, which sit at 79 and 66 respectively, the City of Port Alberni's crime rate remains at more than double the provincial average. If we can move to the next slide, we have caseload comparisons, municipal versus provincial. So I obtained some comparison data from the data analysis unit for E-Division jurisdictions overall, comparing those with a population over 15,000 persons or those in provincial areas. Total occurrences, which is the same as saying calls for service, per Port Alberni RCMP member per year are at 410 municipally versus 225 overall average for the province, and then at 280 provincially, which is on par with the provincial average. Looking at the municipal graphs specific to criminal code occurrences for each officer per year in Port Alberni, it still exceeds all metrics. Port Alberni is just over 110, the average is 60. Other criminal code offenses include things like theft, obstruction, breach, weapons, impaired driving, etc. When this is further dissected to violent criminal code occurrences per officer per year, we're seeing an average of 15 for the province, and it's 23 per officer in Port Alberni. For criminal code property offenses, Port Alberni officers are seeing just over 50 cases against the average of over 35. Provincially, we're at or below the provincial average on metrics. For total criminal code, it's 45, where the provincial average is 60. Violent criminal code is 15 to 15, and for criminal code property, we're below the provincial average of 26, sitting at 21. So this information was confirmation for me in terms of extracting the data locally to see that we're working at double the pace of our counterparts elsewhere, to then look at the extracted data from our analysis unit at headquarters in E-Division, who basically are giving us the same values to show that we're working at double the pace. For the next slide, in terms of our general investigation section, something I've not previously reported on but wanted to add to this report for year end was that to explain that this team is comprised of 7 RCMP members embedded within the detachment. They support our frontline efforts and will work to support, advance, and take conduct of serious crimes inclusive of homicides. They are always on call and often called out. Homicides carry an incredible amount of public interest and scrutiny and are prioritized for investigative advancement. Serious crimes can include things like sex crimes, attempt murder, serious assaults, arson, high-risk missing persons, and high-risk domestic violence cases. The section itself carries a caseload that fluctuates but averages around 50 cases, and given the amount and manner of investigative techniques that they are required to employ for these matters, this is a lot of work for a small team in managing major and serious crimes. Not only maintaining conduct of existing caseload, but always at the ready to take on more as things occur in the community. Several of these cases, of the 50 that I mentioned, are being managed and monitored through court and or are with Crown Counsel. As well, some of the General Investigation Section members, we call them GIS members, they have added cross-functional duties as coordinators for our 3 highest risk crime types, which are your intimate partner violence, sex assaults, and missing persons. They simply offer this added layer of review of all incoming files of this nature to provide oversight, which is in accordance with investigative compliance to ensure policy and procedure processes are upheld. The GIS members are often required to work exorbitantly long hours and often required to work with partner agencies and units, not only around Vancouver Island or within the province, but all over the country as well. Right now, in terms of homicides, to give you a high-level overview would be to say that there are 11 that we currently are managing. 5 are historic, 6 are active. The older ones are constantly being reassessed while analysis, judicial authorizations, and investigative techniques are considered and employed. Something that's also of interest would be that funding streams are always conscientiously leveraged and applied for. For instance, we have SITE, which is Special Investigations Targeted Enforcement, is a police-led initiative that provides funding to eligible operational projects submitted by police of jurisdiction across the province to timely and effectively manage violent repeat offender cases. We also use PTEP, Provincial Tactical Enforcement Priority Funding, coordinated law enforcement initiative aimed at targeting organized crime and gang violence through collaboration by various police agencies. Recently, and specific to one area of targeted enforcement alone, nearly $17,000 in costs were covered by PTEP. And in 24-25, there was $31,000 covered by PTEP, while SITE has been used to cover needed equipment, high-capacity IT storage, and software, arriving at a nearly $160,000 combined total.
Excuse me.
Next slide, please. Crown submissions. We continue to trend on average as second only to Nanaimo. For 2025, our rate of case submission to Crown for charge assessment has remained steadily at around 70% of Nanaimo's rate of case submission. While I can't speak to Nanaimo members' workloads or roadable rates, I can only reiterate that Port Alberni's authorized strength is currently at 45 to their 169. At that, I add that we are always managing vacancies that arise for any number of reasons, which means that while Port Alberni's strength is 45, we are typically operating at a roadable rate of just over 75%, and current to today's date, that's 84%, which makes the number of charge submissions, member workloads, and ongoing management of their investigations much more compelling insofar as reflecting the very hard work and pressures that your Port Alberni members are doing and facing. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much for the report. Councillor Solta.
Thank you for the report, Inspector. And I'm just kind of curious. I know you mentioned about the homicides, the murders that we've had. And so how does that compare in previous years? I mean, there's some back cases, obviously, but how are we, I mean, a homicide is a homicide. So how do we compare that?
For the purposes of this report, I kept it very high level. I didn't dig into the weeds too much to provide trends year over year or anything like that. That's something I certainly can do and provide to you on future reporting. But what I did and will reiterate and say is that we have 11 right now cases that are being prioritized, and 5 of them are historic cases and 6 of them are active.
And are they in the city itself, or is it throughout the regional district?
The ones I'm speaking of are in the city, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Haggard.
I don't know if this is the right time to make this comment, but last Friday, I would like our MLA, Minister Osborne, invited the Minister Young, Minister of State for Community Safety and Integrated Services, and I do believe that they visited the RCMP office as well.
Yes.
And they did meet with community members and business community at the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce office in the afternoon. After the meeting, myself and the manager of community safety and social development did some talking and brainstorming, and she's going to bring some of those ideas to management before I can talk specifically about them. But we did talk about including community engagement to get their support, buy-in, and some possible partnership solutions. So hopefully we can move forward to try and not only help the residents, the business community, but also help the RCMP. So thank you for coming in today. I appreciate that.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to the inspector. Appreciate your report. I'm a positive guy, so I like to pick out the positives in this. And I know it is, we're still, our municipal crime rate is still over double the provincial crime rate. However, I do want to respond, or do want to say that it is down from last year. So I appreciate the work from the members for all that they do in this community. And I did have a question just based on maybe the philosophy or how we're moving forward with the RCMP locally when it comes to the provincial government has said that open drug use is kind of no longer. Is that changed how the members on the out in the public are addressing people when they see maybe some drug use and before maybe there was some drug use where it wasn't a serious priority, there was other things, but does that change now with the provincial government?
So the decrim policy ended at the end of January, and then you could catchphrase it as a recrim, decrim from decrim to recrim. It really hasn't changed, and the time since that has happened or that has taken place has just been too short to measure any change in the way we conduct business at all. What I can say is that I think everybody's in a holding pattern right now, right across the division. In terms of all commanders, we're waiting to see what changes that will create for us, if any. But locally, there hasn't been a change in how we conduct business relative to that particular piece.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to the inspector. You began your presentation today with the crime rates and suggested that we should have expected a seasonal abatement that didn't occur. Could you enlarge on what type of seasonal abatement and why we should be expecting one?
I think that historically, I mean, just in the 30 years that I've been policing, we tend to see high call volumes through the summer hot months, especially when there's a lot more transitory traffic coming through certainly a nice community like Port Alberni. But generally everywhere, there's a winter lull, if you will, and that's because, well, you could attribute that to anything, people being away on vacation, weather, what have you. But this year, we haven't seen it come down as much as we normally would have expected to, but nor has that been seen anywhere. So Port Alberni is not unique necessarily in that regard.
Thank you. I'm going next to the curfew checks. And if I didn't mishear, that the numbers reflected on the curfew checks chart being a total of 1,285 for 2025. That's not just curfew checks, but that is curfew breaches within the community as well. Is that correct?
No, it's 1,285 curfew checks were conducted. The number that were found in non-compliance would be somewhere below that.
Thank you. So curfew checks are essentially just knocking on somebody's door to see if they're at home, correct?
Essentially, yes, and making sure they're in compliance with whatever else other conditions they're bound by.
So could this not be a program that is assigned to a different service other than the RCMP? You don't. I would think you don't necessarily need to have a gun to go check on somebody if they're at home.
That's open for conversation for sure. I would argue that you don't know what you're walking into when you knock on someone's door. It can be very chaotic. I think about one of our constables who actually found, and this is not obviously related to your comment about an officer with a gun, but she conducted a curfew check and found an individual subject and bound to conditions that was in medical distress and was able to render first aid and get the appropriate first responder resources to her to help get that person and facilitate them to hospital. You just don't know what you're walking into. And so arguably, yes, that could be something that's undertaken by another body, but I think the default position would always be to call the police if they confront danger, right? And they would never be encouraged to persist in that endeavor to carry out the curfew check if they feel that there's something there that's presenting as particularly dangerous.
Bylaw officers regularly enter into situations where they don't know what they're going to be getting into, and they have at least some of the similar training with regards to emergency response and initial medical calls. Could not bylaw officers be a service that would conduct curfew checks?
I don't know. I don't know if they could or not. I don't know if that's my question to answer.
Carrying on, I'm going to the traffic enforcement chart now. And there's 3 charts on the one slide. The first one designates things by quarter, but the second and third ones don't. They just have a total number. And I'm looking at the speeding violation tickets and warnings. Is that for a quarter or for the year?
Which slide are you referring to? Traffic enforcement?
Traffic enforcement, yes.
That's for the quarter.
That's for the quarter. So for the 3 months, last 3 months of 2025, I guess there was 67 speeding incidents.
I said 164 traffic enforcement contacts by Port Alberni officers, augmented by another 207 by Vancouver Island Highway Patrol. And then you're looking at 67 for?
42 violation tickets and 25 warnings.
Okay, not only is she dealing with me out there, they got cops that come in that are not very good because they're not trained as a training and it's their stuff that's going on in meetings. They're overloading the track. There's like, they're using a very special tools. And honestly, like, it's ridiculous. You know, I know it's okay, it's just I'm seeing, holy, I know like you guys gotta deal with the stuff that matters, man.
So in answer to your question, yes, I'm seeing 67 on the chart that's reflected there. That would be accurate based on the statistics that we compile locally. And that's just a symptom of simply how little time we are able to devote to traffic enforcement. When we do, that's the result we have in the quarter.
Thank you. So next, I'll move down to the mental health calls. And the characterization that you used in the report was that they reflect when officers are or members are compelled to take a person to a physician for diagnosis. Could you explain any more about what compelled to take a person to see a physician entails?
Yes, when the officer attends and is interacting with an individual who they feel is a danger to themselves or others, and they could, that's as subjective an evaluation as goes with the individual member's stature, training, readiness, ability, what have you, the circumstances presenting. But when they are a danger to themselves or others, the officer will bring them to the hospital.
Are there follow-up statistics that indicate how many of those visitations are met with a doctor either requiring a person to stay at the psych ward or being released back into the community is no longer a danger?
Are you asking me a question about how many times the doctors certify these individuals?
Yeah, I guess that would be the question, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't compile that aspect of the stat. My reporting covers those individuals, the number of those individuals that we took to the doctor or to the hospital. How often they were certified is certainly something that would be a refinement on that search for future reporting.
Thank you very much. I think those are all my questions. That's very helpful. And as all other councillors have stated, thank you for the report. It's great information.
Thank you. Other questions? Nope. Okay, seeing none, Councillor Mealy.
Thank you. I move that the council receive the RCMP quarterly report for the period October 1st to December 31st, 2025 as information.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried, none opposed. Sorry. That's fine. Okay, moving on. Thank you very much for the report today. We'll move on to bylaws. Item number 1, OCP and zoning bylaw amendment for 6123 and 6151 Russell Place.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. For consideration today are the bylaw amendments for 6123 and 6151 Russell Place. And the owner of the properties, the West Coast Native Healthcare Society, is proposing to build 31 units of rental seniors housing at their Rainbow Gardens complex. The amending bylaws would create a new care campus zone that would allow housing to be co-located with a care facility. At the meeting on August 11th, 2025, Council directed staff to prepare amending bylaws for a revised two-story design. And those development plans and bylaws have now been updated. Administration recommends that Council give readings to the amending bylaws and schedule a public hearing for March 23rd. And I'll be happy to answer any questions Council may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments from council? Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to move that the second reading of zoning amendments 6123 and 6151 Russell Place bylaw number 5119 be repealed.
Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any comments? Seeing none, on the motion, all in favor? Carried. And continue on.
I'll move that the zoning amendment 6123 and 6151 Russell Place bylaw number 5119 be read a second time as amended.
Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any comments? Seeing none, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, I move that the official community plan amendment bylaw number 5144 be now introduced and read a first time.
Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any comments? Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to thank staff for going back and putting this back together and trying to find a solution and an alternative at this site, and look forward to the public hearing, of course.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Councillor Solda.
And Madam Mayor, I move that the official community plan amendment number 5144 be read a second time.
Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed.
And before I continue, I want to thank Rainbow Gardens for going back and re-looking at what the council had asked. I'll move that bylaws number 5119, 5144 be advanced to a public hearing on March 23rd, 2026 at 6 p.m. in City Hall Council Chambers.
Seconded by Councillor Mealy. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thanks, everyone. On to correspondence for action. We have 2 items. Item number 1 is an email dated February 9th, 2026 from Little Bavaria Restaurant requesting a temporary road closure on Saturday, August 15th, 2026 to facilitate the 60th anniversary of community celebration. Councillor Haggard.
I think any business that can stay open for 60 years deserves to be celebrated and to continually offer the quality and the service that they offer. And I'm sure all of us, if you have relatives or friends that come out of town, come to visit us out of town, they all want to go to Little Bavaria. So I would like to move the motions, please. I'd like to move that council authorize Little Bavaria Restaurant access to city streets on Saturday, August 15, 2026, from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. for the purpose of a community celebration marking the restaurant's 60th anniversary, subject to the notification of emergency services in BC Transit, consultation with all affected businesses and residents, provision of a traffic safety plan completed by a certified professional, including qualified traffic control personnel as required, provision of standard liability insurance, the amount of $5 million, review of event organizers of the report of the Study Commission of Inquiry into Community Event Safety dated June 26, 2025, and receipt of special event permits from the LCRB.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Haggard, seconded by Councillor Solda. Councillor Solda.
I just want to say congratulations to them. You know, this is going to be a great event. I'm sure the community will come out and support, and hopefully the other businesses around in that area too will join in on the celebration and help celebrate too.
Absolutely. Okay, seeing no other comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And item number 2 is a letter dated February 2nd, 2026 from the BC Farmers Market reporting the results of the 2025 BC Farmers Market Nutrition Coupon Program and requesting that the city send a thank you letter to the Honourable Josie Osborne, Minister of Health. I think we will do that. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I move that council direct staff to prepare a letter of thanks to the Honourable Josie Osborne, Minister of Health, in support of the BC Farmers Market Nutrition Coupon Program.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. Every year we do this, but never do we get to send it to Minister Osborne. So happy to do that. Not seeing any comments on the motion. All in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. Yes.
It also says in the letter that they have not secured funding for the 2026 program season and beyond. They're asking for our support to secure continued funding for this powerful program. Can we also include that in the letter as well?
Absolutely. I think everyone's good with that. Wonderful. Okay, on to correspondence for information and just 2 items. I will go to our corporate officer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we just have a response from the town of View Royal in response to the city's letter regarding joining the Provincial Housing Legislation Coordinated Judicial Review and the ACRD board highlights for January.
Thank you. Any items of correspondence members of council would like to speak to? Okay, seeing none, would somebody like to move receipt? Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. Councillor Dame's gone, nobody to second.
I was waiting for Dustin.
Okay, seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. No report from in camera. We've got council reports. Any items councillors would like to speak to? Councillor Patola and then Councillor Solda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's not in the agenda as a council report because I attended the meeting on Friday afternoon, which there were a lot of meetings going on right then. And interestingly, kind of all on the same topic or different versions of the same topic. The one that I went to was put on by the Community Action Initiative. It was a webinar with regards to a program called the Road to Recovery. The Road to Recovery is I won't call it a test pilot program, but it's a program that initiated in the coastal health region and has been expanded across the province, although in other areas such as ours, it's not quite as involved yet, not as advanced. But what it does is it took all of the pieces of the recovery puzzle and solidified them into one program. So that there's a single access door, and it's easier to make sure people that are in recovery are transferred throughout the process without falling through a crack, as it were. It boasts, at least in Vancouver at this point in time, boasts admittance times of about 12 hours. The longest being, I think the longest wait they've had now is they're down to 6 days. So get people into a bed right away. The good news is that, as I said, it's being expanded across the province to each other health region. And there are 2 doctors in our health region that are working on bringing all the services together under one roof. And I have great hopes for its success.
Thank you for attending and thank you for the report to council. That's fantastic to hear. Any other item? Oh, Councillor Solda was next.
Madam Mayor, it's not really a council report, but I'm putting it under my council report. I just want to say there's a lot of people in Mexico that are Port Albernians and are not coming home shortly. There's 26,000 Canadians registered in Mexico since there's been the violence that's been happening in so I just want to wish everybody, stay safe, and family members that have, or families that are in Port Alberni that have members of their families in Mexico. I'm thinking of them. Council, I'm sure I can speak on behalf of council. We're all hoping they stay safe. And they say that there's no plans for military or consular flights to assist Canadians to get out now. So just lots of prayers and thoughts for the families people that are there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And also, much like Councillor Solda, it's not on the agenda, but just on a more positive note, I just want to recognize Chase Nicklin and the Nicklin family. Chase is going to be representing our community at the Paralympics in Italy coming next month in the para snowboard event. So if you want, of course, we've had Travis Cross as an Olympian as well, who's our deputy fire chief. So I think it just wanted to just acknowledge Chase and the Nicklin family for all that they've done and wish the whole family good luck because they're all going over and going to watch Chase bring home a gold for Port Alberni in Canada, hopefully.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. Councillor Haggard.
Further to that, Councillor Lee, I did send an email to our executive assistant asking if it was possible to send a letter of congratulations from council.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you. We'll make sure that we do that. Okay. Would somebody like to move receipt of these wonderful reports? Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. Thank you. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. We'll move on to new business. Item number 1, Transportation Master Plan, Survey number 2. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council, for having me. I'm here today to inform Council about our upcoming public survey for the Transportation Master Plan. We're drawing into the late stages of the third of 4 phases of the Transportation Master Plan project, and our next step is to release the second public survey. The Master Plan project team has developed a set of goals, objectives, priorities, and transportation network plans that would form the core elements of the master plan if accepted. Some of these elements were shared with Council at the November 10th Council meeting. More were presented at the November Connect with Your City event, and they've been published on our project webpage as well. So this survey is one of our key tools for gauging community opinion on the core elements of the plan and for establishing and ranking relative priorities. The community feedback we get through this survey and through the November engagement event and other direct feedback will give us the information we need to craft the draft master plan report for community and council consideration. So the survey questions will ask respondents their level of support or opposition for the draft vision for each of the draft goals and policies and for specific elements of the proposed capital programs. It will ask respondents their importance or prioritization of each goal and their level of support or opposition to increasing the transportation budget to fund implementation of the initiatives that are identified in the proposed master plan elements. The survey will be launched in approximately a week, and it'll be accompanied by various forms of promotion to maximize participation with the assistance of communication staff who will be helping us to put out social media ads, print ads, other forms of advertisement, direct email. The survey will close after about 3 weeks, after which the consultant will prepare a report summarizing the results of all public engagement results, including the survey. And that report will be brought to council in about 2 months' time. Following that, we'll enter into the final phase of the master plan, which is bringing a draft master plan report to the community and council for consideration. And we're hoping to have that reach that milestone by late spring. So thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments? Seeing none, it's very easy. Would somebody like to move receipt? Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 2. This is municipal campground development, and this is the recommendation from the Committee of the Whole meeting. Would somebody like to read the motion? Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Give Councillor Mealy a rest. He's had a hard weekend. Madam Mayor, I move that Council direct administration to prepare a business case to implement and finance Phase 1 of the municipal campground strategy for Paper Mill Dam Park.
Moved by Councillor Patola, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Comments? I'll go to Councillor Haggard and then Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I stated at the Committee of the Whole meeting, my preference would be to defer this. So I won't be supporting it, not that I'm voting against it. My preference is to defer it because we are taking over Clutha Haven Marina, which is going to be a huge operation for us. And it's going to include 1,001 details that we're going to have to cover. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember Councillor Poon going, when you try and do everything, you do nothing. And that's what I'm worried about here, that we're trying to spread ourselves way too thin here. And I really want Clutha Haven Marina to be successful for the city. So, and then we can go on to the campground development after that is up and running and successful. So I would prefer to defer it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and appreciate those comments, and I echo those comments from Councillor Haggard. I think we need to focus on that first and not put this off forever, but definitely look at it a different time. My other point was is to add Seaton's Park to this, just merely because it is a park that used to be a campground at one point. It is on the river as well, so I'd like to include that eventually. But as Councillor Haggard said, I'm with you on that. Is let's focus on Clutha Haven. Let's get that all figured out, done properly, and then move on to the next subject.
Thank you very much. Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note that we now have a manager of a name that I can't recall, but that is focused on managing the city's assets and finding the non-tax revenues. So I think we have just hired a person that is going to be directed towards these types of projects. And I note that administration brought both of these projects forward. Apparently administration then, for reasons that I can only presume and concur with, feel they have the capacity to do these things. And I would also like to mention, Madam Mayor, that Paper Mill Dam is just Paper Mill DAM, dam. Not as printed in the agenda.
Thank you very much. Other comments? Councillor Dame.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll just quickly say the same as I said in the COW meeting, that I agree with Councillor Patola, and that I think that as far as staff capacity goes, that's one that I would prefer to leave to staff, and I'm excited to see this move forward. And I think that we have some new staff positions, and we just hired new project managers, and it looks like we're well equipped to take on some projects. And I don't feel like it's up to me on how we proceed with that, other than that I would love to see this happen. Thanks.
Councillor Mealy.
All right, I'm going to hedge my bets if that's okay a little bit. I'm going to ask to add an amendment to this to add Seaton's Park as well to this motion.
I will second that. I was thinking of doing the same, so thank you. Okay. No, we don't want to necessarily do them all. When we focus on everything, we focus on nothing, as Councillor Poon did say. But no, thank you for that, because I do think that it's important that we narrow the scope. However, I think you make an excellent point. Of the options that were presented to us, that was one of the top ones for me as well. So while I do think there's potential at Paper Mill Dam, I think it's worth exploring if there's possibly, two to run together, or maybe this might be a better starting point because it did operate in that way. Appreciate the concerns that are going around staff capacity. I think this is one of the few times where I actually do feel like we have staff capacity for something, just because as a result of the new position that's been put in place. But I think it's so important that we always keep that in mind when we do take on new initiatives. And I think from my perspective, it's just mostly important that we remember that this is only asking for the business case. This is not asking to implement. There will be much more conversation around capacity, and even, obviously if it is contracted out, it still will have a commitment to the city to manage and manage the relationship, if nothing else. So I think there will be further conversations about staff capacity, but as it relates just to a business case, I'm comfortable moving it forward in that regard. And I think that we've seen examples along the way, as we've been talking about this concept for a while, of communities that have done very well with these sites and have developed non-tax revenues as a result, which I know is one of the primary goals of our council over time. So I'm excited to see this move forward. Hopefully it does. And hopefully we get back a business case that shows there's potential for it in our community. Any other comments? Okay, on the amendment to add Seaton Park. On the amendment, all in favor? Opposed? Amendment passed. And any further comments on the motion as amended? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to item number 3, Clutha Haven Marina, assumption of operations. And this is just a recommendation from the COW as well. Would somebody like to make the motion? Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And of course, if you watched or if you were here for that meeting, we didn't go through all of this because we're going to do it today. So today's the day. So we'll start First motion is move that council authorize the internal borrowing of $500,000 to fund the capital transition and modernization of Clutha Haven Marina, including the acquisition of critical infrastructure and implementation of parking management systems.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. Any discussion? Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as discussed at the committee of the whole meeting, the infrastructure down there, meaning mostly the where the boats are and all that, are Port Alberni Port Authority. If we do not take on those, they would take that away and we would have to build and much destroy the season coming up. So the reasons for this is that so we can secure the existing infrastructure down there and keep the season moving.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, motion is moved and seconded. On the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And if you want to continue?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that council direct administration to implement a 2026 rate structure for Clutha Haven Arena that reflects a consumer price index CPI increase to 2025 rates with a freeze on parking fees until 2027.
Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. Any comments? Seeing none, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed, and continue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All right, this is where it gets good. I move that council amend the City of Port Alberni 2026-2030 Financial Plan Bylaw number 5138 as follows. 1, 2026, add a new account, Clutha Haven Marina revenue, $428,500. 2, 2026, add new account, Clutha Haven Marina expenditures, $323,775. 3, 2026, line 19114, transfers from prior year, $145,275. 4, 2026, add new account, Clutha Haven Marina debt repayment, $250,000. 5, 2027, add new account, Clutha Haven Marina revenue, $474,213. 6, 2027, add new account, Clutha Haven Marina expenditures, $337,448. 7, 2027, line 19114, transfers from prior year, $119,485. 8, 2027, add new account, Clutha Haven Marina debt repayment, $256,250. 9, 2028, add new account, Clutha Haven Marina revenue, $486,068. 10, 2028, add new account, Clutha Haven Marina expenditures, $446,277. 11, 2028, line 19114, transfer from prior years, $222,866. 12, 2028, add new account, Clutha Haven Marina debt repayment, $262,656. 13, 2029, add new account, Clutha Haven Marina revenue, $498,220. 14, 2029, add new account, Clutha Haven Marina expenditures, $414,559. 15, 2029, line 19114, transfer from prior year, $147,434. 16, 2029, add new account, Clutha Haven Marina debt repayment, $231,094. 17, 2030, add new account, Clutha Haven Marina revenue, $510,675. And 18, 2030, add new account, Clutha Haven Marina expenditures, $423,048.
Thank you, Councillor Mealy. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Dame. Any comments? Councillor Patola.
It wouldn't be worth the pain to ask for separation on this, so I'm just going to say I support it as read.
Thank you, Councillor Patola. Okay, not seeing any other comments on the motion. All in favor? Carried, none opposed. Oh, sorry, any opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Okay, Council, I apologize for not doing this at the beginning of our meeting, but I would like to make one motion and one notice of motion. Thank you. I know, I apologize still. I should have put it on the agenda. So the notice of motion first that I'd like to make is that council asks staff to prepare a report to explore the inclusion of the log train trail in the regional park service. Thank you. And it doesn't need to be seconded. It's just a notice of motion. So that will come to the next meeting of council.
Point of order, can you do this at the end of the meeting? Doesn't have to be added on the agenda at the beginning of the meeting?
You can do it at the end of the meeting. Okay. It is best practice to add it at the beginning, and which is hence my apology for not adding it. And then second, and I'll speak to that obviously at the next meeting. Second, I'd like to actually make a motion to form or for that for the City of Port Alberni to formally request an increase in the grant and aid funding from the Regional District for the Parks and Recreation Service. And if somebody would second that, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Mealy. Myself and Councillor Haggard were recently at an ACRD budget meeting where we were discussing services, and members of the Regional District are asking for information on how to possibly withdraw from some services that they feel they are paying too much for. It led to quite a large conversation about equity in the Alberni Valley and some services that, of course, the city pays fully for. From there, we ended up in a conversation about recreation, and the current amount that the regional district pays toward recreation is around $70,000, which the directors noted was a fair contribution. Our net budget for Parks, Recreation, and Heritage is closer to $8 million, so I would suggest it is not a fair contribution. However, the comment was made from more than one director at the time that the city has never asked for an increase. And if we're not asking for an increase, they're not giving us an increase. And I think that was a very fair comment. I was not aware we had never asked for an increase, and I will say that we absolutely have asked for an increase in the process at Grant and Aid. We've had discussions about it at the board table. I've been a part of many of those discussions, but we may not have actually written a letter and formally asked for an increase. So I would like to take that step to do that. I did reach out to our CAO to get an understanding of how long we've been receiving this payment without an increase, and I understand it's around 25 years.
Yeah, I was going to say 25.
It's a long time. So there's a number of ways that we could, look at what type of increase would be appropriate. I initially asked Andrew to calculate what the $70,000 with our applied budget increases each year would be, and we think that that's probably not going to be supported. So what we are going to put together, if council supports it, is an increase that has been based on CPI, based on those years, and bring that forward as a request. It may not lead to any change, or it might just lead to a discussion and a further shift in how we look at this year to year. But I think it's at least worth us bringing it forward in a formal way and making sure that we're on record as requesting it, seeing where it goes from there, and furthering the conversation down the road. Councillor Patola.
Did anyone second that? Because if not, I will. Okay, good, excellent. I wonder if it doesn't need to be part of the motion, but as opposed to CPI, since most of parks deal with physical upkeep, I'm wondering if the construction price index, or whatever it's actually called, but the consumer index that's related to construction costs, which is different than consumer goods, would be more appropriate. I think parks is more akin to building structures and physical work than it is to buying eggs and blankets. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. And I didn't put that in the motion, so I think it's fine without that. Andrew, I'm not sure if you've actually done any work on these numbers yet, but don't feel like you need to have numbers for us today. I've left the motion vague, just that we start the process and make the request, and we'll look from there. Andrew.
Madam Mayor, so I have done some work on the CPI increase, of course, but don't have that in front of me. But we would prepare that for the letter that council may be forwarding to the ACRD. But it's the non-residential building construction costs increase.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for that, and I think that does make a lot more sense. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I probably obviously second this, but I do agree with you. And just to note, of course, we had, and of course you're on the regional board, but they are done at March 31st for their budget. So I would hope that this happens very quickly, at least to get that in for this year, or the expectation would be for next year.
Thank you, and that's why I didn't make it a notice of motion today, although I do recognize that would have been better for a late motion coming forward, but I do think it's time sensitive for us to bring it forward. It may lead to just a minor increase for this year and a further conversation for next year, but I do think that we need to formally make that request and at least start the conversation, because the disparity or discrepancy in funding for parks, recreation, and heritage services that we all do have access to, and we all do utilize, and we're aware of that based on user numbers, has just grown far too large to not take this forward. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carried. Thank you. And we'll move on to question period. Sorry, unless anyone else has late motions they'd like to bring forward. Seeing none. We'll move on to question period. This is an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions on decisions or recommendations made during the course of this meeting. Up to 3 questions per speaker are permitted. Would anyone like to ask questions? Okay, seeing none, would somebody like to move adjournment? And sorry, we are moving to adjourn, however, we are reconvening to in camera. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dane. On the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.